Welcome to The Growth Equation. This isn't your typical business podcast. We're keeping it real about the challenges of scaling up, period. I'm Tristan Wright and I've been there. I've built and scaled my own business. I've sold it. I've learned a ton along the way. Now I'm bringing you the no BS stories of founders who are in the trenches right now, navigating that messy middle. We're talking advertising, marketing, design, creative, branding, the whole 9 yards. Doesn't matter if you're a solopreneur or running a team of 100. Everyone's got a secret sauce, that thing that makes them different, better. We're going to uncover it. So grab a coffee and let's get real. Today we're talking with Tim from Upraise PR. Welcome, Tim.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
I've been looking forward to having this chat with you, and you've got quite an interesting story and journey to share. So yeah, really looking forward to our chat today.
Great, thank you. I am as well.
Can you, before we get started, you don't own Upraise PR anymore. Can you tell us a bit about Upraise PR? I've just given away the story.
Yeah, so we're 20 people. We're focused mostly on B2B tech and fintech. We were independent for about 21 years, and then we were bought out about a year and a half ago by an agency in Miami called RBB Communications. And they were eager to have a tech PR practice because there's a thriving and rapidly growing tech community in South Florida. And we were eager to have services beyond pure PR that we could offer our clients.
Yeah, so it was a match made in heaven.
It's been a good fit, yes.
All right, before we get into that, can you tell us, how did Upraise PR come about? What was your journey to setting the business up? Where did you start?
Yeah, so I was at a very large PR firm owned by one of the big ad holding companies here, and I joined right at the beginning of the dot-com boom in Silicon Valley, and got the benefit of that boom in terms of our office growing like crazy for about 4 years, but then also went through the bust, where I basically over a year fired, or not fired, but laid off 3/4 of my staff when all the startup at the time went away. It was awful. It was awful. And it got to be 2003. I wasn't really happy with the agency anymore. And the principal reason was I really like working with clients. And when you run an office of 50 people, you spend a lot of time doing administrative stuff. You spend a lot of time on new business. And having been owned by a holding company, we spent a lot of time reporting to the out holding company, who was, always eager for more income from us. And at the time, when it got to be about 2003, I figured if I was going to start my own firm, that was the time. So I did it.
Yep. What was it like? Did you just get up and leave and you're like, I'm good at my job, I know what to do? Or what was it like?
Yeah, I went through a formal process and I resigned and, stayed friendly with my boss and many of my employees, former employees, for quite a while. And I'm still friends with some of them. So it was amicable in that sense.
What was it like actually taking the plunge and then setting up? Did clients come with you? Did staff come with you at the time? How did that look when you set it up?
No, because I was running an office, I had a pretty tight agreement that made it very clear that I was not to take staff and not to take clients. So, I didn't go there, and I didn't try to go there, and I didn't, try to do an end around or anything like that. I was very careful because the last thing I wanted was, of course, to get into any kind of legal problems. So I was very straight about that.
Yeah. So you went out on your own and built your own new network from scratch, effectively. That's doing it tough. Not doing it tough, but like you're backing yourself and your skill set.
Yeah. Now, I certainly had contacts in Silicon Valley, in terms of either former clients or prospects that were not included in the contract, and so I certainly stayed in contact with them. And of course, new business was 80% of my life for the first couple of years in particular.
How long did it take you to replace your income in setting up the new business with Upraise?
Um, it took 2 to 3 years. I started out taking a very small salary and kind of increased it as we won clients, and I gained some confidence that the business was going to succeed.
Yeah. Yeah. That's not bad to get it up within 2 or 3 years. So
Yeah.
often people end up chasing it for 4 or 5 years and then realize, no, it's not the right thing, or they finally get there.
Well, also in California, there's a self-employment tax, so it's an incentive to take a low salary and then take bonuses depending on how the business is doing.
Yeah. Okay. So talk me through the journey from those first couple of years to let's say just pre-COVID. How did the highs, the lows, the employment, the pivots, the late nights?
Let's see. Well, getting space wasn't difficult. Our first space was in a historic building in Sacramento that was built in 1914, so right after the earthquake. It had fantastic views down Market Street, our main street, and of the Ferry Building,
Yep.
and and it was set up for 1 to 2 person companies. And so what happened over time is, as we grew, we were lucky in that spaces next to our offices continuously became available. So by the time we left, we had 6 offices, that were, a couple of people apiece. And my wife's an interior designer for the commercial side of the industry. So she got me some inexpensive furniture. So it was, the funny thing about starting a business is, everything is on you. Everything from the coffee maker to the office space to the paper to the printer to the copier, everything is on you.
Yep. to filling up the toilet paper and cleaning the toilet at times. Yeah, like it all comes back to you. Like the buck stops with you. Yeah. Okay. So you started there. Where did you go from that building?
It got to be 2011, and the space was okay, but it was kind of minimal. And I figured if we were going to go to the next level as a company, in terms of clients, in terms of hiring, that we needed a better space. And so we moved to not very far away, only about a 5-minute walk. And it was kind of perfect. We found a space that was about 2,500 square feet. It was right near Market Street. And in San Francisco, a lot of the transit runs up and down Market Street. And I had learned from my golden days that one of the things that attracts employees is having an office near transit. So that was good, and it was a nicer space. It was a nicer building, and at the time in San Francisco, it was hard to rent a space of that size. It was only 3,000 square feet, and most companies in the city wanted a lot more than that. So I think the landlord was happy to have us.
Yeah, nice. What did that do for the business and I guess your clientele? So you felt like you needed that footprint to attract the correct staff, but also how did it change the way you went about business and clientele and attracting?
It it didn't do a lot for clients because clients rarely came to the office anyway. If they did, they often came to the office because they had a meeting in the city and wanted a place to hang out before their meeting. So we would do that and have a catch-up meeting while we were there. It was really good for new business prospects because the space kind of said that we had arrived as a company.
Mm. Yeah. How big did you get like, so at the moment you're a team of 20. How big did the business ever get?
Yeah, it got to be 22 to 23 people.
Yep. So how did you find, how have you found managing, going from being a team leader to setting up your own business, doing the executing, to having a team of low 20s? Because you can't have too many layers of management in there, but you also need management at that level, because it's tough if you don't have.
Yeah. So what I had learned at Golan, my previous agency, was when I got there, they were 5 or 6 people, and they had lost a huge account and laid off like 50 people or something like that. And so we were basically restarting that office from close to nothing. And I learned that when you set up staffing and set up a structure, that it worked great from the time we were maybe 5 or 6 people to maybe a dozen. And then all of a sudden things started to break. And I realized that you've got to evolve the structure if you're going to get from, say, 12 to 20.
And that's what that's the exact numbers I say in other podcasts. 13 is the number, and then like the death zone almost is 15 to 20. You've got a whole heap of extra costs.
Yeah. So I took that thinking and did the same thing. So as we grew and got, I would start to look for cracks in how things were running, and then would realize, okay, it's time to evolve how we are set up, and then did it again when we got to 20.
Yep. Yeah. So you were because you'd already done it, in effect, you were looking for the same warning signs and the same cracks that you'd had with Golan. Did you bring in a general manager or an operations manager in that time, or what layers of management did you put in, or leadership?
Yeah. So we had three. So over time, um, we hired 3 vice presidents, and we would set up account groups under them,
Yes.
and and they would run the client. Once I had confidence in them, they would run the client work on a day-to-day basis, and the people under them would be dispersed among the VPs on purpose. So they would learn, I like how this VP does this, I like how this other VP does that. So it was part of their training, and it also avoided cliques from forming. Um, so there were no, there wasn't account group A and account group B and account group C or anything like that. Um, so that's worked great. And as we got bigger, and I had confidence in them, I could step back from the day to day. And so, for example, we have a weekly call with every client, so I'm on that. We have a weekly internal meeting a couple of days before the client call, and I'm on all of those. And then I go through all the strategy docs, and when we have a new opportunity to expand the business, I'm involved with that. But I am not a backseat driver. I let the VPs run the business on a day-to-day basis, and I basically stay out of it.
Yeah. How long did it take you to get to that level? Because you can often people attempt to do that, and then they have to rein it in and start over again.
Yeah. So with one of the VPs, I'll give you a couple examples. One of the VPs had come from another agency, and so she progressed pretty quickly to becoming a vice president, and knew the ropes really well, and knew kind of the tricks of our trade, if you will, from the agency side. So I was able to let go within maybe 2 years. And then my other VP at the time came from the company side and had to learn the agency tricks, and and that took longer. So that was maybe 4 or 5 years.
Yeah. So each person has got different levels of experience, and yeah, different. You've got to train them in different ways. Tell me about the late nights that from the team mess ups, or the way undercharging or doing work wrong. Tell me about, like, there's lots of positives, and it's easy to share the positives, but we often learn from, we won't call them mistakes, but things that didn't go to plan. And I'm sure there's been a couple.
Yeah, yeah. Although, frankly, they were more when I was at Golan and I first got there because it was kind of a mess of an office, as I say, because they had lost their kind of cornerstone client. And the people were kind of dejected, and I didn't really know them. And we run a big new business push. And so something would be owed to the client the next day, and I would look at it and realize it really wasn't where it needed to be. Um, and so at the beginning, that was on me. So there were a lot of nights, where I was there, till midnight or after. Um, and then I tried to use that as a teaching experience for the people, and I'd go back to the VPs, and certainly not in an angry way, and say, okay, this is what the expectation is of what we have to send to the client.
So you're being proactive, like even though you weren't an owner with Golan, you had that responsibility. So you almost, it was your education to setting up your own business. Now, the business has been purchased recently. Were you getting towards the end of your career and actively looking for someone? Did they reach out? What sort of journey did you go on with this?
Yeah. Yeah. So it got to be right before COVID, and I figured that I wanted to sell the business in the next few years. And my lease was up in 2018, and I was able to convince the landlord to give me a 3-year lease, whereas the standard here is 7.
Yep.
Because I figured a new owner wouldn't want to be locked into a long-term lease. And I hired, well, at the beginning, a couple of agencies came to me, and we got down the road a bit and realized it wasn't a fit. And then finally, I hired a business consultant, and he brought me, many opportunities, many of which either the other company thought it wasn't a fit or I thought it wasn't a fit. And I was really, really careful because I didn't want my staff to leave. I didn't want the clients to leave. And I wanted it to be a positive experience because I knew I would probably have to stay, 3 years. 3 years is the standard here.
Yes. Yep. So the handover. So the business consultant was looking. Did he end up finding the company for you, or how did you?
Did. No, he did. Yes.
He did. Yes. And then how did and I don't want you to go into numbers or anything like that, but the negotiations and the deals and how long you have to stay in the handover, how did that all play out? Because there's business owners that have built a business, but they're like, what do we do now that we've built a business? Do we just let it go, or what's the transition progress? What's the sales process?
So the sales process was with the company that acquired us, RPP, was we had several conversations. I went to Miami and spent some time with some of their senior team, and I had a very specific set of things that I was looking for. And then they liked us, and so we signed a memo of understanding, and then got into the nitty-gritty negotiating.
Yep. And then from there, obviously, deal was signed. And how long ago was the deal signed?
February of 2025.
So, and a 3-year handover, or are you in the business for the next year and a half now?
Exactly. Yes. So I'm in the business. Yeah, a little over another year and a half.
Yeah, got you. So, and then how does that work for you? Is there tranches they're paying you a wage, and is it you have to retain the clients during that period? What's the way the agreement looks? Again, numbers confidential.
Yeah, no, of course. And this is all very standard, at least in the States. I received an initial payout, and then I'm paid for every year on my earnout, and I'm paid based on the profitability of the agency.
Yes. Yep. And yeah, again, very standard here in Australia, but business owners a lot aren't aware of this. So I'm wanting to get them to understand it as well. So is there a client retention mechanism as well, or is it purely based off profitability?
It's based on profitability, and there are clauses about if we send RBB a lead, we get a certain percent of income. If they send us a lead, they get a certain percent of income, and things like that.
Yeah. So you're protecting each other through that as well. So how is that transition period playing out now? Is it everything that you thought it would be?
It is, and in fact, it's been better, because one of the things I missed running my own agency is dealing with people who are my peers. Because all my employees are wonderful, and I probably learn more from them than they learn from me. But they're all 20 somethings.
Yeah. Yep. So
Um,
you're now able to have conversations with peers or people that are at a similar level.
yeah. So, and that's been really great. And so just this week, we're doing a project for a client, and I got a certain percentage along, and I shared it with the CEO, and she came back with a pile of ideas that made it a lot better. And then earlier this week, I shared it with one of the EVPs, and she came back with a lot of ideas that also made it better. So it's really fun for me to hear, since everybody's had different experiences, to hear how people come to these problems.
Yeah. They're looking at it from totally different angles. So um, once exit comes about, what are your plans? Is it just relaxing, or do you think you're going to start up a new venture, or what? Where to from here?
Yeah, I don't think I'll start something new. We've talked very informally about my continuing on as a consultant, but we haven't talked any specifics. And we talked about that during the negotiating phase, but really not since.
Yeah.
And whether that would be, on salary, I don't know, pick a number, 25% of the time, or if is it simply a fee for specific projects. We haven't gotten into any of those details.
Look, advice for business owners. Let's say they're 3-5 years into business. So go back way back when. What do you wish you knew, or what sort of advice would you like to give business owners that are relatively early on in their journey?
Okay. Um, I think something that I was not good at first and had to get better at was to keep a very tight rein on the numbers. And I tried to take the approach that if we needed to subscribe to something, and one of my folks thought it would be helpful, that we'd go do it. And in retrospect, I probably should have been a little more careful about subscribing to things, early on, and keeping a tighter rein on profitability until we had a cushion built up. So it took me longer to build up a cushion than it probably should have.
Yeah. And I don't think you're the first person to do it that way. You think you need the tool, so you go and spend money on it. So the lesson is be across your numbers a lot more than you think you need to be. Yep. So is that the PR side of things, or is that the general business? Like that can apply to both.
It can apply to both, but it really applies to PR as a service business, because our business is based on recurring revenue, but it's very easy for that revenue to go away.
Yeah. Yes. Like just because it's recurring doesn't mean it's going to be here in 3 months' time.
And I can tell you that we are a mentor at an incubator here called Plug and Play, which is one of the world's largest accelerators and incubators for startups. We've talked to hundreds of companies there, and I think the lesson I would recommend, and do recommend to a lot of those businesses, they really need to figure out what business they're in and who is their ideal customer, and how are they different from the 800 other companies that offer something similar.
Yes. Yeah, because you need to niche. You need to focus on. You need to differentiate yourself and focus on your area of expertise.
Yes, particularly in tech, where so many sectors overlap into one another. Um, it's very easy to fall into this kind of soup that it's not clear what exactly your value proposition is and who are you competing against and who your customer is.
And so many people take money just because they need to grow their business. But yes, it's a short-term win, but it's going to hold you back because you're not necessarily focusing on what you're really good at. Yeah. So definitely knowing your ICP, your area of expertise, definitely a big win. So Tim, it's been awesome talking today. If people want to get in touch to learn a bit more about your story or even use your services, what's the best way to connect?
They can contact me via email, tim@upraisepr.com.
Awesome. Thank you very much for your time today, mate.
Thank you. I appreciate it a lot. Thanks for talking to me.
Cheers.
That's a wrap. Thanks for tuning into The Growth Equation. If you've enjoyed the show, hit that subscribe button and leave a review. It helps us big time. Catch you next time. And if you want more, head over to evolvetogrow.com.au for show notes and exclusive content.